Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. The Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels rivalry is one of the most infamous in WWE history because it blended real-life tension with on-screen drama. It started in the early 1990s when both were rising stars and competing for the top spot. Bret the Hitman Hart was someone who took pride in his technical wrestling and professionalism, while Shawn, who couldn't be more aptly nicknamed other than Heartbreak Kid, thrived on charisma and risk-taking. Their differences in style and personality sparked friction backstage, and this grew into genuine dislike. By 1997, the tension boiled over. Bret was WWE champion, but Shawn's influence with Vince McMahon frustrated him. They clashed over creative control, and personal insults flew, with Shawn mocking Bret's family while Bret called Shawn a sellout. Their rivalry peaked at Survivor Series 1997 in the Montreal Screwjob. Bret was set to lose the title to Shawn before leaving for WCW, but he refused to drop it in Canada. Vince, fearing Bret would take the belt to WCW, secretly planned with Shawn and the referee to end the match early. When Shawn locked Bret in a sharpshooter, the bell rang despite Bret not submitting, and the title was awarded to Shawn. Rather obviously, Bret felt betrayed, spat at Vince, and then destroyed ringside equipment in rage. This moment wasn't just kayfabe, it was raw and real. The screwjob shattered trust, and Bret left WWE with an extremely bitter taste in his mouth. Their real-life animosity lingered for years, but they reconciled in 2010 when Bret returned for a storyline with Shawn. Their WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match remains a technical classic, yet it's the screwjob that defines their feud. The blend of personal grudges and in-ring brilliance made this rivalry unforgettable, and it still sparks debate among fans about loyalty and betrayal in wrestling. Edge versus Jeff Hardy. The Edge and Matt Hardy rivalry of 2005 stands out as one of WWE's most gripping feuds because it was rooted in a raw, real-life scandal that blurred the lines between wrestling storylines and personal betrayal. Initially, Edge and Matt Hardy were close friends, but their relationship imploded when Hardy's longtime girlfriend, Amy Dumas aka Lita, began an affair with Edge while Hardy was sidelined with a knee injury. The affair became public knowledge among wrestlers and fans, and the fallout was messy. Hardy felt betrayed and aired his grievances online, which led to his temporary release from WWE in April 2005. And, as they say, never let personal relationships come in front of a good script, so Edge leaned into the controversy. He embraced a heel persona that capitalized on his real-life actions. WWE saw the potential for a blockbuster storyline and brought Hardy back in July 2005. Their feud kicked off with a brutal attack by Hardy on Edge during Raw, setting the stage for a deeply personal rivalry. The promos were intense as Hardy called Edge out for stealing his life, while Edge taunted Hardy's heartbreak, with Lita at his side adding fuel to the fire. Their matches, including a street fight on RAW and a steel cage match at Unforgiven 2005, were extremely physical.
Steel briefcase, it's legal! He missed it! But Hardy doesn't miss the right hand!
Some fans even suggested the emotional intensity of these matches reflected their genuine animosity towards each other. The Loser Leaves Raw ladder match at Homecoming 2005, where Edge won, marked the peak of their rivalry, and ultimately the WWE took a diplomatic way out by sending Hardy to SmackDown. The real-life heat made every moment electric, as fans knew this wasn't just a scripted feud. Hardy's return was fueled by a need to reclaim his dignity, while Edge's career soared as the ultimate opportunist. According to Wrestling Inc. and Hardy's own accounts, the two eventually reconciled years later, but in 2005 their pain was real, making this feud a standout for its raw authenticity. CM Punk versus Ryback. During his 434-day WWE Championship reign, CM Punk battled top stars like Daniel Bryan, Chris Jericho, and The Rock. However, his matches with Ryback became a major talking point in wrestling circles. On Colt Cabana's The Art of Wrestling podcast, Punk criticized Ryback, calling him "steroid guy" and claiming he was reckless in the ring. "I'm already banged up, and I have to wrestle this guy who's very hurt, sometimes on purpose," Punk said. "Once, he kicked me in the stomach so hard he broke my ribs at the end of our match, and I never got an apology." Ryback fired back on social media and his Ryback TV show, dismissing Punk's claims as false and damaging to his career. After Punk announced he needed surgery shortly after winning the AEW World Championship, Ryback tweeted, "Karma rules." It's safe to say these two won't be bonding over a Living Color concert anytime soon. Hurricane Helms and Shawn Michaels. Hurricane Helms and Shawn Michaels had wildly different paths in WWE. Helms made a name for himself with his superhero gimmick and a brief alliance with The Rock, but he never came close to the spotlight that made the Heartbreak Kid a household name. The the showstopper, the main event, the legend. Still, Helms wasn't sold on Michaels' hype. Back in 2011, he took a shot on Twitter saying, "Ric Flair got over guys who were total duds. Shawn hasn't put anyone over but himself in the last 10 years. When a fan called him out for the harsh words, Helms doubled down, claiming Michaels had deliberately held back his career and wasn't above lying to prop himself up.
My bullshit alarm would go off. I'm like, this motherfucker liar. He is a total liar.
Fast forward to 2019, though, and Helms had a different tune. On the 411 Wrestling Interviews podcast, he shared that he and Michaels were now cool, working together backstage at WWE and getting along just fine. Bryan versus the Authority. Corrupt authority figures are a wrestling staple, flexing their power to mess with wrestlers and rile up fans. But when someone finally stands up to them, it's guaranteed to make for some must-watch TV. One of the best examples of this unfolded in the 2000s and 10s with Bryan, the ultimate underdog, taking on WWE's corporate powerhouse, the Authority. This nearly year-long saga was so gripping it snagged Pro Wrestling Illustrated's 2013 Feud of the Year award, and it's easy to see why. The spark ignited at SummerSlam 2013 when Triple H screwed Bryan out of the WWE Championship. What followed was months of Bryan scrapping against The Game, Randy Orton, and The Shield. As WrestleMania 30 loomed, the Authority seemed to pivot away from Bryan, who, as he told Newsday, wasn't even booked near the WWE World Heavyweight Championship or the main event. But his rabid fan base wouldn't let him fade into the background, pushing him into two massive matches at the event, first taking down Triple H, then outlasting Orton and Batista to claim the title. The Bryan vs. Authority storyline hit its high point with that WrestleMania 30 victory, but it fizzled out fast. A neck injury forced Bryan to relinquish the championship after just one defense against Kane at Extreme Rules 2014. It was a flat ending to a feud the fans practically demanded into being. Still, like they say, it's less about the finish line and more about the wild ride to get there. Bret Hart and Goldberg. Given Bret the Hitman Hart's history locking horns with another bald goateed wrestler in black trunks, you'd think he and Goldberg would have created something special in WCW. Instead, their clash at Starrcade 1999 left Hart seeing stars and not the good kind. A brutal kick from Goldberg gave Hart a concussion that, piled on top of other injuries, forced him to hang up his boots for good.
Johnny moved the referee. Standing.
On Steve Austin's Broken Skull sessions via comicbook.com, Hart didn't hold back, calling Goldberg one of the most unprofessional wrestlers in the business. He said he'd warned Goldberg before the match to keep things safe, but it didn't matter. For Bill Goldberg to be in the Hall of Fame, he hurt everybody he worked with. Hart fumed, "You might as well wrestle a real gorilla." Goldberg fired back in an Inside the Ropes interview, insisting the kick was a mistake. He added that if he'd meant to hurt Hart, Bret wouldn't be talking about it. Batista and Bully Ray. With Dave Batista's massive frame, it's hard to picture anyone daring to mess with him. Maybe a gorilla or Bigfoot could toss him around with their own Batista bombs, but that's about it. Still, Batista revealed that one WWE veteran took shots at him and Randy Orton back when they were rising stars in the Evolution stable. Bully Ray, then known as Bubba Ray Dudley. In the Ruthless Aggression episode Evolution via Fightful, Batista recalled a match where the Dudley boys squared off against him and Orton. Both teams left the ring banged up, with lingering bad blood over perceived cheap shots. The story depends on who you ask, though. Batista believed Bully Ray had it out for them, driven by jealousy. "I think he was annoyed with Randy and me from the jump," Batista said. "We were these big, jacked guys rolling with Ric Flair and Triple H. I think he just couldn't stand it." Ricky Steamboat versus Ric Flair. The National Wrestling Alliance and World Championship Wrestling boast a treasure trove of epic rivalries, especially from the late 80s and early 90s, but few hold a candle to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Nature Boy Ric Flair. Their legendary feud kicked off in February 1989 at NWA's Chi-Town Rumble, where they delivered a masterclass that ended with Steamboat capturing the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. That match sparked a months-long saga that had fans on the edge of their seats. Steamboat, the wholesome family man finally claiming the top prize, clashed perfectly with Flair, the brash, swaggering showman desperate to reclaim his gold.
Champion! Ricky the Dragon!
Their rematch at NWA Clash of the Champions No. 6, Reagan Cajun, in March 1989, was a stunner, earning the Wrestling Observer's Match of the Year award, with Steamboat coming out on top. The trilogy wrapped at NWA Wrestle War 1989, aka Music City Showdown, where Flair took back the title in a bout Pro Wrestling Illustrated named 1989's Match of the Year.
And the ropes may have saved the championship for the Dragon.
The Steamboat Flair rivalry cooled after Wrestle War, but it wasn't the end. They reignited their magic with a series of bangers in WCW in 1994. Years later, in 2022, they nearly faced off again for Flair's retirement match, but Steamboat passed on the opportunity, per the Wrestling Observer, leaving old-school fans dreaming of what could have been. Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. As key members of NXT's Four Horsewomen, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair skyrocketed to become two of the biggest names in sports entertainment, shattering barriers by co-headlining WrestleMania 35 with Ronda Rousey. On and off screen, they were tight as they climbed the ranks, but neither was keen on playing second fiddle like some wrestling sidekick. Things boiled over during a SmackDown Championship Exchange segment when Flair allegedly went rogue, deviating from the script to make Lynch look weak. The move sparked a fiery backstage clash between the two. On the SI Media podcast, Lynch opened up about their fractured bond, saying they were once as close as it gets, but now don't even speak. "The locker room needs a hero sometimes, and I'm okay being that hero," she said. Lynch admitted it's tough to work with someone when real-life tension lingers, especially in a business rooted in trust, where you're always wondering if someone's looking to settle a score in the ring. CM Punk and Triple H. CM Punk had no interest in Triple H's games in or out of the ring. He loathed WWE's backstage politicking and wasn't thrilled about facing the game again either. After walking out of WWE in 2014, Punk spilled his frustrations on Colt Cabana's The Art of Wrestling podcast, griping about the string of losses he took to Triple H and questioning if they were truly best for business. When Vince McMahon pitched a match against Triple H for WrestleMania 30, Punk looked him dead in the eye and said, "With all due respect, I don't need to wrestle you, you need to wrestle me."
I respect you, and I know that you don't like me. You're just as bad as Vince McMahon.
Triple H fired back on the Steve Austin show, via Sportskeeda, claiming he was clueless about any bad blood with Punk. He expressed some regret over how things went down with Punk and WWE, but pointed the finger at Punk for not speaking up about his issues when it mattered. Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart. Hulk Hogan may have been wrestling's golden boy in the 80s, but behind the scenes, he was notorious for playing politics like a pro. His knack for looking out for number one sparked plenty of off-screen bad blood. Bret the Hitman Hart in particular has never held back his disdain for the Hulkster, throwing every insult in the book his way. Word is, their beef kicked off when Hogan refused to put Hart over at WrestleMania 9. Even as Hart was set to be honored on the 2021 Canada Walk of Fame, he couldn't resist taking a swing at Hogan. Back when wrestling was the Hulk Hogan show, Hart told the Calgary Sun, he was 6'8" and a 1 out of 3 wrestler. He didn't know a headlock from a headlamp. He barely knew a clothesline and maybe a body slam. The Hart-Hogan grudge has simmered for decades, outlasting even Hart's infamous feud with Shawn Michaels, Hardcore Holly, and The Click. Search The Click on YouTube and you'll drown in shoot interviews, most of them tearing into the group. Plenty of wrestlers felt Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Triple H, and Sean Waltman climbed the WWE ladder in the mid-90s by stepping on others. Hardcore Holly, a mainstay during the Click's peak, had his own run-ins with them and didn't mince words. In a shoot interview, Holly let loose, "I hated them. The way they acted, they ran everything. Guys didn't stand a chance with them around." He wasn't sure if they trashed him backstage or actively tried to derail him, but he knew their knack for tanking careers and despised it. In his book, The Hardcore Truth, The Bob Holly Story, Holly doubled down, saying the Click wasn't the tight crew they seemed to be, with members constantly stabbing each other in the back. Will Osprey and Seth Rollins. Seth freakin' Rollins leaned hard into his heel persona at a 2019 Q&A panel, dismissing AEW and other promotions as minor leagues. Doubling down on Twitter, he bragged that WWE was the real deal and no wrestler alive could touch him. The internet wrestling community was already fuming, but Will Osprey took it personally, firing back in a now-deleted tweet, "I'm alive." Rollins didn't miss a beat, claiming Ricochet was a better Osprey and taunting him to compare bank accounts. The wrestling world slammed Rollins, accusing him of shilling for WWE and dissing the indies and healthy competition. But odds are, Rollins calling Osprey a bargain bin Ricochet was a deliberate work that hooked everyone, Osprey included, Scott Steiner and Ric Flair. When WCW comes up, two names dominate the conversation, Nature Boy, Ric Flair, and Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. Flair was a mainstay in WCW's main event scene, while Steiner carved his name as a tag team standout before peaking as WCW World Champion by defeating Booker T at Mayhem 2000. Despite sharing the WCW spotlight for years, Steiner had zero love for Flair. On his ARN podcast, Arn Anderson spilled that their bad blood kicked off in 1991, when Steiner felt Flair deliberately phoned in a match to avoid putting him over. From then on, Steiner was done with Flair. The tension exploded in a scathing shoot promo Steiner cut on Flair during a 2000 Nitro episode. Time hasn't softened Steiner's grudge. During a High Spots Sign It live stream via Wrestling News, when told his old friend Flair was returning to the ring, Steiner didn't hold back. "He ain't no friend of mine," he barked. "I'd kill him. I'd destroy him. Yeah, everybody wants to see him get beat up." Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage. Now this one wasn't just business. It was personal. Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage started out as friends. In fact, they were the Mega Powers, two of the biggest names in wrestling teaming up and taking over. The fans loved it. They were larger than life. But the thing is, it never stays peaceful for long in WWE. The moment Miss Elizabeth got involved, the cracks started to show. Hogan treated her like family. But Savage? He didn't see it that way. He thought Hogan was getting too close, too friendly. He felt disrespected. Jealousy started to boil. You could see it in the way Savage looked at Hogan during interviews. You could hear it in his voice. It wasn't just a story on TV. These guys were feeling real heat backstage too. Savage thought Hogan was trying to steal the spotlight and maybe even steal Elizabeth. Everything exploded in early 1989. Savage turned on Hogan right in front of the world. And when they finally clashed at WrestleMania 5, it wasn't just two wrestlers fighting for a title, it was two former brothers going to war. Hogan won that night, but the damage was done. Their friendship was dead, and the rivalry, still one of the most personal in WWE history. Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon. Is there a wrestling fan? Even if you were a casual fan, you must have heard about the 1997 Montreal Screwjob. Bret, the WWF champion and a loyal company man, was set to leave for WCW but didn't want to drop the title to Shawn Michaels in Canada due to their real-life bad blood. Vince, fearing Bret would take the belt to WCW, orchestrated a secret plan at Survivor Series. During Bret's title defense, Vince ordered the referee to ring the bell when Michaels applied the sharpshooter, declaring Michaels the winner despite Bret never submitting. Furious, Bret spit in Vince's face and later decked him backstage. The Screwjob birthed the Mr. McMahon villain persona. But for Bret, it was a personal stab in the back. The real-life heat festered for years. Bret, in interviews like Wrestling with Shadows, called Vince a liar who disrespected his legacy. Vince leaned into the controversy, claiming he did what was best for business. Their feud went in-ring at WrestleMania 26 in 2010, where a limited Bret pummeled Vince in a no-holds-barred match, a cathartic moment for fans. Even after returning to WWE for Hall of Fame inductions, Bret's resentment lingers, as he told the Calgary Sun in 2021 that the Screwjob still stings. This feud, blending raw emotion with scripted drama, redefined wrestling storytelling, exposing the messy reality of trust and power in the business. Chris Jericho versus Goldberg. The rivalry between Chris Jericho and Goldberg is one of the most intriguing what could have been feuds in wrestling history, not because of what happened on TV, but because of what went down behind the scenes. It started in WCW in the late 1990s. At the time, Goldberg was a dominant, undefeated powerhouse being pushed as WCW's next megastar. Meanwhile, Chris Jericho was a rising mid-card talent who used humor and charisma to stand out. Jericho began mocking Goldberg with parody entrances and fake jobber Goldbergs, including one segment where he challenged Goldberg repeatedly to matches that never happened. Fans loved it, and Jericho's antics started gaining serious attention, so much that some backstage felt it was hurting Goldberg's aura. But Goldberg wasn't laughing. He didn't appreciate Jericho using his name to get over, especially in a comedic way that painted him as a joke. He also didn't see Jericho as being in his league and thought Jericho making fun of him was disrespectful. Years later, in WWE in 2003, tensions boiled over. Jericho and Goldberg were both in WWE by then, and unresolved issues from WCW lingered. According to multiple accounts, they got into a real backstage fight, during which Jericho allegedly got the better of Goldberg, even putting him in a front facelock to control him. Wrestlers present were stunned, as Jericho was seen as the smaller guy. Despite the heat and history, WWE never truly capitalized on the feud on screen. The rivalry became more of a locker room legend than a television storyline. Jericho has since spoken more openly about the altercation and even poked fun at it in interviews and books. Goldberg, for the most part, remained quiet about the incident. Triple H and Chyna. In the late 1990s, Chyna wasn't just Triple H's on-screen ally, she was also his longtime girlfriend, and a trailblazing woman in wrestling, breaking gender barriers as a member of D-Generation X, and even competing for the Intercontinental Championship. As Triple H's star began to rise, Chyna was right there beside him, and many believed they were an unshakable power couple both on-screen and off. But behind the scenes, things took a turn. Around 2000 to 2001, Triple H began a romantic relationship with Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon's daughter. Chyna later claimed she found out about the affair unexpectedly, which devastated her. This betrayal wasn't just personal, it affected her career. Soon after, Chyna was released from WWE under circumstances she believed were directly tied to the fallout of the real-life drama. She claimed her contract negotiations stalled once the relationship between Triple H and Stephanie became official, making her feel expendable despite her massive contributions to the company. Though the two never feuded on screen, their real-life rivalry became one of the most talked-about backstage stories in WWE history. Chyna's departure marked the end of her mainstream wrestling career, while Triple H went on to marry Stephanie and become one of the most powerful figures in the industry. Chyna struggled with her post-WWE life and never fully reconciled with the company before her untimely death in 2016. The Triple H Chyna saga remains a painful reminder of how personal relationships can deeply shape and sometimes shatter wrestling careers. John Cena versus Alex Riley. The tension between John Cena and Alex Riley is one of those backstage rivalries that never made it to TV but had a massive impact on a rising star's career. Alex Riley was once seen as a promising talent in WWE. He was charismatic, athletic, and paired with The Miz during his peak WWE Championship run. After turning face and breaking away from The Miz in 2011, Riley seemed poised for a solid singles push. But suddenly, his momentum vanished, and he was quietly relegated to commentary and lower card status. Fans were left wondering what happened. According to multiple reports and interviews, including hints from Riley himself, the downfall stemmed from backstage heat with John Cena. Riley has said in interviews that he and Cena had a confrontation, though he often avoided giving explicit details. The rumor, widely circulated among wrestling insiders, is that Riley stood up to Cena during a backstage argument, and Cena didn't take it well. In WWE's backstage culture, especially during Cena's Top Guy era, clashing with the locker room leader could be career suicide. Some believed Cena used his influence to halt Riley's push. While Cena has never publicly addressed the issue, the consequences for Riley were obvious. Despite fan support and clear potential, Riley never recovered from the fallout. He eventually left WWE in 2016, and the full story of the Cena-Riley conflict remains somewhat shrouded in mystery, which is fueled more by whispers and indirect confirmations than concrete details. Still, it's often cited as a prime example of how backstage politics and personal conflicts can derail even the most promising WWE careers. Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar. Okay, this isn't exactly a legit rivalry, or maybe you can say it is a legit rivalry, but without the vicious animosity. Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar are not only two of the biggest names in WWE or pro wrestling, but they are also legit wrestlers. I mean, I don't think I have to tell you that Kurt Angle won the Olympic gold medal with a freaking broken neck.
I won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
While Lesnar was a four-time All-American in college and won the NCAA Division I championships at the University of Minnesota. Around 2002 to 2003, both men were in WWE. Lesnar was the young, explosive rookie being pushed as the next big thing, while Angle was an established star. Their pedigrees in wrestling sparked constant comparisons and eventually curiosity about who would win in a real wrestling match. The match is said to have taken place backstage during a WWE taping, reportedly in front of several wrestlers. The story goes that Kurt Angle kept hearing people say Lesnar could beat him in a shoot wrestling match, so he eventually challenged Brock. Lesnar initially resisted, reportedly saying he didn't want to hurt Angle or look like he was challenging him disrespectfully. But eventually, the two locked up, and according to multiple people who were there, Angle won. He used his technical skill and experience to outmaneuver the younger Lesnar, and by most accounts took him down multiple times. The match was reportedly friendly but intense, and no punches were thrown as it was pure grappling. What's most notable is that neither man held a grudge afterward. In fact, it seemed to increase their respect for each other.